Howdy, y'all. It's just old Tucker back witchins, and appreciate you letting me be with you and tell these old tales from the Appalachian Mountains. Well, my great-grandson Tyler asked me to tell a few ghost stories since it's about Halloween up here in the mountains. Now, there's all manner of ghost tales I could tell, ghosts and goblins, so I'm going to tell a few of them here. I'll just tell you one today here to get it kicked off, I guess. So bear with me. I'll try to remember them as best as they're told to me. These have been handed down for a long, long time, and whether you believe them or not, that's, of course, and that's up to you. But, I believe there's always a grain of truth in any of these old tales. But, you just decide for yourself. So on this story, it happened, of course, long, long time ago, deep in these here Appalachian Mountains. There's this narrow, winding holler. They called it Black Holler. The trees there grew so thick at sunlight it barely even touched the ground. The folks would whisper that strange things was happening in those woods after dark. This went on for generations. People would speak about the ghost of a young old woman. She wandered the holler at night. Her face was always covered up by her long black hair. But she was wearing a snow-white dress that just glowed in the moonlight. Her name, they said, was Susannah Harper. Now, Susannah, she lived in a small cabin at the edge of the holler with her daddy. He was a hard man who worked in these old coal mines that made a lot of hard men out here. Susannah was a quiet girl. Everybody knew her for her beauty and her kindness, but her life was filled with sorrow. You see, her mother had passed away when she was just a baby, and her daddy, grieving and bitter, he took his anger out on Susannah. Neighbors would say they often heard some shouting coming out of that cabin, but nobody dared to intervene. I reckon Susannah's daddy was a big man and kind of a fearsome man. Well, one cold fall night when the wind was a-howling through the mountains and them leaves was rattling like bones, Susannah's father came home in a rage. A lot of people say he'd probably been drinking. That makes a lot of men rage. Well, the story goes that something terrible happened in that cabin, but nobody knows for sure what it was. Some people say he struck her down in a fit of anger, but others claim she ran away from the house and got lost somewhere along the way in the holler. The only thing everybody agrees on is that Susannah Harper was never seen alive again. Well, the first sighting of her ghost came just a few days after she disappeared. There's an old hunter up there in Black Holler. He's passing through at dusk and saw a pale figure standing among the trees. Her dress was trailing on the ground like an old mist. He called out to her, but she didn't answer. When he got closer, she disappeared and vanished. And all she left behind was the faint sound of weeping. It was carried through the wind. You could hear her crying out. Well, over the years, lots of other folks have claimed to see Susannah's ghost wandering the holler, always at twilight or in the dead of night. She's said to always walk that same lonesome path leads down to the creek where a lot of people believe her body was hidden. If you stood still long enough, sometimes you'd hear the soft rustling of her dress, or maybe a faint cry of her voice calling for help that would never come. But there was one part of this tale that struck the deepest fear into the hearts of those that lived nearby. You see, it was said if you looked Susannah Harper in the eye, if you saw her face beneath her dark hair, you'd be cursed to the same fate she had. There were stories of brave or maybe foolish men who ventured into the holler at night to try and prove their courage. Some came back pale and shaken, and they all refused to tell of what they had seen. Some, they say, never returned at all. To this very day, there ain't nobody that ventures into Black Holler after dark. That old cabin that Susannah lived in has long since rotted away, been covered up by the kudzu, and the earth reclaimed her own. But Susannah's spirit lingers. She's caught somewhere between this world and the next one. On these old quiet autumn nights when the wind whispers through the trees and the air grows heavy, you just might catch a glimpse of her pale figure moving silently through the woods, forever searching for peace that she's destined to never find. Well, if you're ever in those old mountains walking in them trails at dusk, keep your eyes low and your footsteps light. Maybe she'll pass you by, 'cause one thing people still say to this very day is that Susannah Harper still walks these woods, just a-waiting for somebody, some way, somehow, to finally set her free. And that's the story of poor Miss Susannah Harper. I've heard that tale my whole life, and was it true? I don't know. But I know one thing. I ain't ever going into Black Holler after dark. That's for darn sure. And I'd suggest that you follow my lead on that one. Well, if you enjoyed this story, I appreciate you listening, and thank you kindly. I'll be praying for you, and I hope you'll do the same for me, and I'll talk at you sometime later.